Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm actually taking the dogs for a nice walk in a quiet country lane. I've just done the school run, so I'm giving the dogs a fair good walk. It's about 3.5 miles and it's up through a steep valley, mid-section of it, so that'll get my heart racing and give me a bit of exercise. But blue skies, no wind, it's not cold. I've only got a hoodie and a t-shirt, and on top of that, you can see grass growing in the middle of this lane. It's not used much, so hopefully I'll encounter no traffic to spoil the ambience of this particular walk. Now, there is something about the English oak tree. It is absolutely majestic. This obviously isn't the biggest example I could find, but it's just one that stands out in the hedge, and it has a partner. I'll bring you around. There. It's lost a limb there, but even so, it still looks majestic. Well, the daffodils have all come out in force now. All the country lanes are full of them. Now, while walking these lanes at this time of year, and we've had some good weather which has brought it forward a bit, you'll hit patches of the hedge which will have a real oniony garlic smell, and that's wild garlic. And I've got a patch here and I can really smell it. I picked up one leaf, crushed it and smelt my hand. Oh, it was really overpowering, but in a nice way. But if you walk through a patch of it, and obviously you're breaking the leaves, which, you know, I wouldn't encourage people to do that, but you can walk along a piece of ground and you'll get that real strong pungent odor. And in some cases you don't even have to disturb the plants. Just walking near them you can smell that smell. Let's find a leaf. Where to? Let's grab this one. They're just coming through. Just break it like that and smell. One of the disadvantages using country lanes is potholes, and I've got my foot in it. You can see it's about 6 inches deep there at the deepest point. Not going to do your nice alloys and tyres much good. Saying that, I've often considered the fact that I possibly should have a Land Rover or something for what I do. So I'm starting a descent down into the valley on this country lane, and at this particular point you'll notice the hedgerows start to get extremely high. In fact, the hedgerow up to there is probably 20 feet high. Looking back up the lane, you can see how narrow it gets, and when the spring growth really takes off, it can feel like you're driving through a jungle, as all the, well, brambles, stinging nettles and all the other plants grow out into the lane. See, this lower half of this paddock, it's still in reasonable condition. It'll probably need mowing and brought back into good condition by the farmer if he really wants to use it. But if I bring you around here in stark contrast, this is the top half of the paddock. Look at it, just a sea of brambles and stinging nettles, and it's a tight tangled mess. And that's probably 10 to 12 feet high in the deepest parts. There's no walking through that. You would need some serious machinery to get that back under control. An old utility shed there. It was probably used for livestock and things like that. Let's walk back out onto the road. And we come down to the haunted house. Or that's what we've nicknamed it for the kids. Although my oldest kid, Cody, he doesn't fall for it now. Corey still believes it's the haunted house. Now that really would be a nice little cottage if it was done up. It's kind of at the point, it's almost a ruin now. Somebody could do something with it. I'm not going to get too close because it's a sea of bog, water and mess there. There you go. When we drive up this lane, we always say to the kids, oh, see if you can see Casper the Friendly Ghost out the window. Like I said, Cody doesn't give that much thought anymore. He thinks I'm being stupid. We just keep it going for the youngest one, Corey. Right, approaching a little junction here. And I'm going to take you to somewhere where, well, I might even be able to see it here. I usually just park the car just in this entrance here. But, bring the dogs back here. If you look over there, and you're looking into the sun now. No, you can't see it. I'll have to probably go to the gateway to try and get a better view. Right, we're still going down, so we've got to keep going down. But let's just see if I can get a better shot. I'm in the sun here now. It's early morning sun. It is quite bright and quite warm. I'm going to have to get my hoodie off, I think. Right, so when I brought you to Bluebell Wood just for a quick little look about, you can actually see from here where the fox cubs would have been playing over there. And we were just sitting over there. There's no activity at the minute. I'd like to think we see another load of fox cubs there. But the chances are slim. I mean, I've seen it for 2 years in a row. So, you know, that's pretty good luck, I would say, on my part. Chances are they've either moved on or sadly they're no longer with us. That's nature. Right, the blackthorn has come out into flower. Beautiful white little flowers with 5 little petals. The road heading down this part of the valley is cut really steep into rock, and there's always water. Bracken's going in after it. And you can see it's always oozing out of the actual rocks. Bracken's just having a drink. Because the Star's now drinking. Star's now drinking as well. Right. You finished? Come on. Now this route I'm walking is a real pleasure to walk on a real hot summer's morning. And just as the sun is starting to really beam down and burn, you get into this part of the lane, and because it's cut into rock and there's always water trickling down this road, even in the driest parts of summer, there's always water here. And you get the canopy above you. It's cool and it's got that refreshing feel about walking down here. Unfortunately, at the bottom is that uphill part, so I always savour this bit because I know I'm going to be sweating on a hot day by the time I get out of this valley. Right, let's just go in here for a little look. Come on, keep walking. Come on, keep walking. Keep going. There. Let's get in the open. Come on, this way, round the tree. Very small bit of woodland here. It's not really woodland, it's just basically a bit of ground that's been allowed to go back to nature over the last 30 odd years. But nobody seems to do nothing with it. That paddock there hasn't been cut, it's just all the dieback of the bracken. It becomes, yet again, almost unwalkable in the peak summer season when that bracken is fully grown. It can be as high as your shoulders trying to push through it, and then you're dealing with ticks. Now over here is a true thicket, and there's hawthorn, blackthorn, all the primarily first growing species that takes over land, and it's come about 30 feet out from the hedge over there to here. That's how long, you know, this land hasn't been touched. It's a shame really, but that there really is it really is so wicked in there with all those spikes and thorns. An unlucky wood pigeon has become a meal for something. Right, let's head out of here. Now this is a really steep road, and I'm leaning backwards to stop these dogs pulling me over. And it's not just because they're pulling hard, it is steep as well. The one thing I will say, travelling these roads, if you're not confident reversing, it's probably best avoided, because you consider yourself lucky if you've got a little gap like this you can stick your car in or vehicle in to let somebody pass. Otherwise you're literally reversing all the way down the hill, or up the hill in some cases. As we get to the bottom of the valley, there's a big river and an old mill house that's been converted lovingly into a beautiful residence. It's kind of almost your dream place to live, by the river, paddocks surrounding it, stone buildings. It's really beautiful. It's really peaceful and calm down here. Now you do actually see fish in here as well. It's really clear, that water is so clear. Because we haven't had a lot of rainfall just recently, it isn't got loads of runoff from the land in it. Now I've got a little stream running down from a ford on this side of the road, and that looks really deceptive, but when it rains it floods that out, floods the top of the ford, and this road can have a foot of water coming down it. Yeah, that I'm not exaggerating, but I'm walking through a very steep valley. as you can see by these trees, some of these trees are massive. And on this side, I've got the same. And I've still got that nice cool atmosphere. I'm shaded by the sun. And in fact, when we drive the car down through here, quite often if it's 0 degrees when we set off at home, it can be another 3, possibly 4 degrees cooler down here by the river and in the shade of these trees. Now there is some steep drop-off cliffs there, a bit hidden in the shadows there. You might just see it there. Right, I'm down to a t-shirt because I'm going uphill and I've got a fair distance to go uphill. It's very pleasant if you're doing it like I am here, with a little bit of time on my hands, and you can just gently amble along and take all this beautiful scenery in. Sometimes I do forget how lucky I am that there is small patches of this still left in Cornwall that I can walk through and just enjoy it. Unfortunately, Cornwall, like everywhere else, is being infected by all the issues that basically the rest of the UK are dealing with. But for this exact moment now, I can forget that and just enjoy being here. So I'm walking up to the ford and the dogs are really pulling. In fact, it's the one moment I don't mind it because it is actually helping me go up this hill. But that is actually a road, although in the time I've been with Jamie living in this area, this precise area, that has gone from being like a tarmac road to nothing but almost a dirt track. I think Cornwall County Council are letting that go back to a green lane. It basically doesn't serve anything or anywhere except a few farms. And as we know, Cornwall County Council are 1.3 billion in debt. So, and I think they're not alone. There's a lot of other councils or county councils within the UK that have financial issues. Right, this little ford, it does look like a trickle, and it's so hard to believe that not enough water can go through this little old bridge, and it'll build up here and it will actually roll down here and go down this road. There's a real smell of pine and resin and all the evergreen trees. You can really smell it hanging in the air. It is quite beautiful. You want to get going, don't you? There you go. Have a drink before we go up that hill. Go on, have a drink. Go on, Star, you have a drink. There. Bracken's drinking as well now. But yeah, the water comes down in flood season and it just cannot get through all this. And there is a drop off on the other side if I can get to it. There. So this is where the real work starts, and it is a sizable gradient on the actual lane going up through the valley now, and it goes on for quite a way. We've got to go through another small little hamlet, and then it gets a little bit steeper even more before we broach the hill, and we go to the very top, which is called Top of the World by my kids. You might have heard me talk about that before. Right, we started climbing up this lane. And we've still got, that's not even the end of it. We've got around the corner through the hamlet, and it still carries on for a fair while. Now, a lot of land around here is owned by the duchy, and the king, or former prince, used to be the main figurehead for that. This has now been passed on to Prince William, and I think they derive an income from it. But yeah, most of this land, which belongs to royalty, are neighbours of mine. My property butts, or my back garden butts right up against their land. I still haven't been invited to a garden party at Buckingham Palace yet, and you'd think I would get an invite being a neighbour. Now I'm walking up to the small little hamlet, and there is a slight respite from going uphill, and I can see why they obviously built the farms and houses here back in the day, because it's the only flat little bit of ground in this valley. So I'm just utilising it to catch my breath. Right, continue around this lane. Yet again, more daffodils. And I'm seeing loads of different varieties and styles of daffodils, which is nice. There you go. Right, just around the corner here, once I get past these houses, and I think it was an old farm back in the day, but like everything in this day and age, it was sold off and split down into various different units. But yeah, as this lane winds up around the corner, it gets steep again. So we're leaving the little hamlet now, and I'm just on the slope again, and there's a patch of daffodils with a grit container because it's steep, and you've only got to get a touch of frost and sometimes your car will slide here. Now this is a huge splash of colour. They come up every year here like this, but there's usually more varieties. I'm only really seeing this type of yellow one. Oh, there is a few different varieties, and one like that, but there's usually more different types of varieties. But yeah, grit and salt bucket, because more uphill. I'll just show you this. Look how many rabbit holes there are in this hedge, and it's actually undermining the whole hedge here. There's rabbit holes all the way along it. Bracken's found some more. You can see them there. They're everywhere, and that's going right in under the tree roots there. It's all the way along here. There, I'm starting to climb out of the valley, and you can just see the views that are beginning to happen. I've gone past the halfway mark, although I'm on the steepest part now, and the views should open up again. I should get views to Dartmoor and across to Bodmin soon. This whole hedge has been undermined by the rabbit holes. I've walked nearly 50 yards and it's nothing but a sea of holes. Now that will mean this hedge will collapse at some point, and you can see, well, they're starting to dig there again. You're probably thinking, what is the big deal? But I'll show you. Now, a lot of our hedgerows are, well, ancient in their own right. They can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 years old. So what is the big deal about all these rabbit holes? Well, they do cause subsidence, collapse, and ultimately they bring down trees as well. And that's just a humble rabbit that is doing it for the biggest part. There are other burrowing animals, but they're not in such vast numbers and do it in such a concentrated spot. But there's a perfect example of what's happening here. So you can see here it's started to give way, and this part of the bank is breaking out. And as you can see in there, that was a tunnel or a rabbit run. And you can see it's all subsiding and coming away. And this will all slide away from the hedge. But see that there? That is part of their tunnel system. But the ground above it, during the wet conditions, can't support it, and it just breaks away and comes out of the hedge. And ultimately that happens all over the hedge, and it will fail. Right, those views are opening up. And I can see the opposite side of the valley I've walked down, and it's on the horizon there. We've come down through a lane over there. Now you might see a little triangular patch over there. That's that part that is completely covered in brambles. Right, this valley has some vast tracts of woodland running through it though. Beautiful to see. Right, it's not over for me. I've still got to keep walking towards the sky and the clouds. Now look at that, folks. That is the beautiful countryside of North Cornwall, the UK. Now, I don't really like to get too political or, favour too much one perspective over another on this channel. I have my own views, obviously, but it's not because I'm being weak-minded and not wanting to speak my mind, but obviously we're all surrounded with it, and you don't want to be clicking on channels and listening to it. I've just had a beautiful walk through the countryside, as you can see, and I'm fast approaching the top of this hill, or top of the world as my kids call it. But 1.5 million homes or residents are predicted or expected to be built during this parliamentary sitting, and that's only for this sitting, and they say that won't even touch the sides of the housing crisis that we got. And this now will probably be an ongoing thing. Everything I've shown you here on this walk, one question, I think, whatever side of the fence you literally sit on with it, whether you believe in it or don't believe in it, it should happen, shouldn't happen, or we should be looking for different solutions. One thing I think we can all agree on, how much of what I've walked through will still be there in 10, 20, 30 years time. Somebody might be looking at me on the screen, well, at 55, why will it matter to you? Well, I do have kids, and that's part of the reason I make these films, as kind of a documentary for them, because that little hamlet we passed through, could there be basically another 50 or 60 houses plonked there, which will alter the feel, the nature of that little hamlet. And indeed the village I'm walking to, which is where I live, where we've got a very small community of people, it's ripe for being built in and around, and there has been discussion and talk that that could happen anyway. But yeah, how much of what I've shown you will still exist in the future? That is food for thought though. Right, the clouds have thickened up and it has a bit of a grey hint to it. It's not going to rain, I don't think, but the temperature has risen dramatically. It's holding the temperature in and I've got a bit of a sweat on. But I can just make out Dartmoor in the distance there. Top of the world. And we've come from down in those valleys there. Now you can just see that lane is starting to crest the hill here. And as you come up the track, and it always fascinates me because you won't see this everywhere. I've got lichen growing on the roads. Quite simply the air quality up here, because this hill is quite high, it's good quality air, sees very little traffic and pollution. That is the true summit there at the top. But yeah, this always fascinates me, and it's quite hard wearing. I mean, if you walk on it, it doesn't seem to dislodge it. It's probably been here, well, obviously since this road was put here, obviously it's not going to survive being re-tarmacked, so you can probably guess how long this road has had any maintenance. And as I always show you, there's Bodmin Moor just over there. Now, like I said, it's quite high and I've got a really spectacular views over to like Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor, back towards Launceston and the north coast of Cornwall, and even so far as heading towards Pensilver, and pretty much if you continued on that way, it would be Plymouth. But this hill here never used to be fields, it was open moorland, and the farmer who lets me harvest in his field says he can remember when it was all put into hedges, or he can remember people talking about it. And yeah, that's really, it's local history and knowledge, because people moving through this area now, including myself, would never have known that or realised within recent history this land was put back into use. But like I said, it was open moorland up here. And I can believe that, because when it is poor weather up here, the rain really comes sideways, the wind howls and really hits you hard, and if there's a cold biting wind, it really cuts you to the core. Right, I'm making the descent now back off this hill, back down to my village, right down this road here. And the dogs know where they are now. This is their old stomping ground, or they come up here a couple times a day. Well, it's become quite overcast. It's still warm and there isn't too much wind now. I've come off the top of the hill, but I'm nearly back to the village and I'll be cracking on with daily life and all the chores I got to do. And I've got some hiking sticks I've got to well, start crafting, continue a cycle. But as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm kind of slower and slowing down on that a little bit. I've also got a hospital appointment later in the day, but I've really enjoyed that, and that's really set me up for the day. I hope you've enjoyed coming with me for a little walk in, well, North Cornish countryside, and just had a little look at what an ordinary dog walk for me is like. So all that's left to be said is take care, stay safe, and I hope to catch you guys on the trail.